Okay, we'll go ahead and get started. I want to welcome everyone and thank you for taking the time to join us today for another installment of Pandemic Workforce. This is a series of discussions around continuing the conversation about the pandemic and how it's impacting the workforce. We're joined today by Denise Tarka with Tarka Consulting and Jeannie Grubbs, who's our Human Resource Manager for Gen Edge. We're also joined today as panelists by Mr. Jeff Jaycox, who's President and owner of Tabit Manufacturing Company. Also is a member of our Board of Trustees, Bert Eads, Plant Manager for Blue Ridge Fiberboard, and Bethany Rose, who's a Vice President for Buchanan Pump Service and Supply. So I'll go ahead and turn it over to Jeannie, or rather to Denise. And Denise, if you could go ahead and take it and go.
Thank you, Sam, and thank you to everyone who's joined us here this morning. Today is kind of an interesting day because we started this session 3 months ago, and we outlined a framework which has proved to be pretty consistent over the summer. We wanted to take this pandemic workforce issue and look at it from the physical place, the people place, and the processes place. And as we've walked through each one of these webinars, we've continued to focus on those 3 components. So as I mentioned a few moments ago, our agenda for today is going to be the same, kind of do a brief update, touch base on each 3 of those sections. And then at that point in time, we're going to go to my favorite part of today's webinar, and that is our group of panelists. We have some wonderful panelists who I think have some great ideas. I've had the opportunity to learn some of the things they're doing. Jeannie has also spoken with them, and the sharing that has gone on between manufacturers, I think has been so helpful and successful in helping everyone adjust to the pandemic workforce. As I mentioned at the beginning of our last webinar, I have to start with a disclaimer. It's been this presentation was designed to help you identify areas of compliance. We're going to touch on some standards that are technically in effect as law, and this isn't legal advice. And I invite you to reach out to Gen Edge. Sam has been pioneering some resources to become available to manufacturers, and also just to check with your own legal counsel. That said, I want to go back to the 3 Ps, which have been our focus areas since we started this journey back in the spring: physical, people, and policies. Under the physical environment, we've continued to see all of the practicing of social distancing. We've seen the use of disinfection, etc. One area, though, which has seen some advancements since you and I last met, or we last gathered, is under the area of the Phase 3 guidelines. The Department of Labor in Virginia has posted on their website this document. We will also be sharing this with everyone who is registered for the webinar today. The Phase 3 guidelines are guidelines for all business sectors. So obviously, as manufacturers, some of these may not apply. But they are guidelines that reinforce and in some ways advance some of the physical distancing, the cleaning, sanitation, all of the practices that we have been working on over the last 6 months. So with that in mind, we will share this document with you, and if you have any questions, we invite you to reach out and ask those questions and see if you need assistance and so forth. Under the area of people, we have some slightly disturbing news. The Gallup poll says that Americans' view on when this disruption will start to improve is continues to be disenfranchised and now seems to be longer than anticipated. Gallup has been tracking this, and in August, in their last poll, 51% said longer than this year. So originally we had this trend of a few more months or weeks. And now the trend is, or the perception is, it's going to be longer than just this year. So let's talk about this for just a moment on the implications to you and your workforce. We know that employee engagement, employee relations, employee participation, all of those factors are critical to a positive bottom line. We know that disenfranchised employees, employees who are weary and weak, tend not to perform at the levels they do when they are happy and life is going well. I think that's just a reality for all of us. I think many people are getting up in the morning and feeling like, oh, here we go again. So what does this mean to you? This is an invitation to you to consider some new employee relations programs, or even just some new employee relations, small things that make a difference. It can be doing something for the employees just in incentive and encouragement. There's an organization I know right now that they have just decided, you know, twice a week, they're going to do something small just to say to the employees, you know, everybody's kind of a little bit dragging. We're all feeling like this is never going to end, but we're going to do something positive and inspiring, and we're going to keep you guys as focused and happy as we can. I think right now what we're seeing and what I have heard from an organization I've been working with is, as we are moving back into school and as we're moving into the area where flu season begins, there is a lot of concern over that. So one of this particular organization has made arrangements to have the flu vaccine available to be received, or they can get their flu vaccines. They're working with a local med center in order to have somebody on site on a particular day to administer flu vaccines. This is not any extra cost to this organization, and it's an example of some really goodwill where they're trying to help the employees who want the vaccine. They're not mandating it, but they're just making it available in a place where it's, you know, obviously a concern for health and safety and wellness. So that's an example of an employee relations activity that can be viewed as helpful and encouraging to the employees. The Gallup organization has really dedicated themselves to tracking how employees are feeling. And as of their 8/14 outlook, you know, it was continued to be kind of on the bleak side. And they, at the same time, did some polling on the vaccination, because there's a perception that the vaccination will be the end all to this. And as of that poll, which was done on the 7th of this month, 1 in 3 people reported that they would not get the vaccination, that they did not want to get vaccinated. So in some ways, the perception on the people front, it's a little gray and cloudy today, but I think as we continue to see progress and continue to advance with the standards, we will see that we'll all get through this and to the other side. The last area that I want to touch on is where the Virginia Department of Labor has posted, you know, what the current status is. 3 guidelines that they have in place: the Executive Order 67, that's focusing on bars, you know, congregation there. 68, the Eastern region has some new restrictions that are above and beyond the published emergency standards. So if you're in the Eastern region of the state, we invite you to visit that. And then there's some phase 3 guidelines. We are sending you that document, and there's a great section on frequently asked questions. All of that is available at Virginia's website and the Department of Labor's website. Again, I just want to real quick point you to this posting. A lot of questions that I've received have dealt with, where can I get resources that are free and easy to print out? Here's another place where there's some great printable posters that you can use in your workplace. Jeannie, I'm going to bounce this to you real quick. I know I kind of ran through that because I'm excited for our panel, but do you have any thoughts, comments, conversation, ads that you think you've run into since we were last together?
No, these were the latest that I had too, so I didn't have anything newer, and I'm excited to get to our panel too.
Yes, I know, this is the best part. So with that, I want to open the floor and welcome our panelists. We have four wonderful panelists who have agreed to join us today. We have Jeff Jaycox, who's president and owner of Tabit Manufacturing. We have Bert Eads, and correct me if I pronounce your name wrong, please, Blue Ridge Fiberboard. We have Bethany Rose with us. She's the co-vice president at Buchanan Pump Service and Supply. And is Jason with us as well today?
He is not. He's actually on another meeting.
Okay, but we are so delighted he was willing to join us and to help us with this conversation. So what I'd like to do right now is I'd like to ask each of the panelists to introduce themselves and tell us a little bit about your company. And then we'll get into the questions on what you've been doing for COVID. Why don't we begin with Jeff?
Hey, good morning. Hope everyone's doing well. Thanks for participating. Tabit Manufacturing's been around for over 70 years. We mainly do support DoD programs where we're doing metal fabrication, electromechanical assembly, machining. So we provide a pretty wide range of products to mostly DoD, but some commercial customers. We are unique in that we have about 85 to 90 people, depending on the day. And we run 2 shifts. So our first person, is in here probably about 4:30 in the morning, and then we close up just before midnight. So we've got some, extended shifts when we need to. So we have people in and out of here. And when the COVID pandemic started to come up, we immediately kind of jumped on what we can do. I don't know, and we can talk about it, but we immediately saw people, especially we've had like some older people, we have people with kids. Everyone kind of had different hot points of what they were concerned about and what we could do to help them through that. So one of the first things we did is got everyone together and did some education on what we knew at the time. And kind of what that laid out is that we said we were going to provide this education as it became available from reputable resources. There were a lot of unreputable resources, I thought, and I continue to be out there for information that are putting people at risk in lots of different ways. So we were early on getting people together and created these small groups and just provided them a chance to understand what's out there and then to ask some questions. If we couldn't answer the questions, we went after the answers, but that kind of put people's mind at ease a little bit. And we continue to do that today. The other thing that we did like immediately is when the FFCRA program came out, we had everyone trained on what that was about and how that could help them by the 31st of March. So when it kicked in on the 1st of April, we had forms ready, education ready, all that good stuff. I think that kind of provided people a little bit of a safety net financially that, we offer certain things, but this went beyond that. We had a lot of really good feedback. We've had a lot of people use it, but I think the important part is that we just kept giving them information, how to help them and their family. So that's a big deal. The other thing we did early on is provided people some guidance on testing. So if they did get into a situation where they needed to be tested for COVID, we provided a list of places that was kind of real time, who was turning tests around quickly and who was not. That helped because I certainly saw a lot of people in our area of the state struggle to find testing solutions. One of the things that we did, and we have had it on hand and we stocked up, we provided really deep cleaning several times a day, told people we would continue to do that. And it was good because we do it ourselves, but we bought some additional equipment and we continue to do that today. I guess the big thing is just make sure that they know they're in a safe and clean environment. We have a lot of space, so we're able to space people out, but still, restrooms, break rooms, everything that they interface with, we wanted to make sure that they knew we were making an effort to clean on a regular schedule. We did ramp up on the PPE pretty quickly. We mandated masks almost immediately. Got some pushback on that, still get some pushback on that, but we provided them for people, and then we also provided them to take them home for them use outside of work and in their
That's great.
families. You know, our big thing is just we educated them. How do you reduce the risk? And everyone is at risk in some way, shape, or form. Even the people who lock themselves down at home, they're at a different type of risk, but they're at risk as well. So, so we still do that. Most people have kind of figured out what works best for them, but we still offer it if they're, you know, going on a trip or something and it needs, you know, masks and gloves, we give them to them. So, the next thing we've kind of always been fairly flexible. Well, now we're really flexible with people's schedules. So if people can't come in on their scheduled times, we give them a lot of leeway to come in at other times. The facility's open and most people can work independently. So we have people that come in later that have kids. And I know when a lot of the schools in this area aren't starting immediately, but we're still going to let people move those schedules around so they can accommodate mostly their children is the biggest thing we have. We've gotten a lot of good feedback. And kind of the last thing that we've done, because I think the confidence numbers you see also translates immediately to personal perception and kind of I think we have people here who might have slight COVID depression just because the world has changed so much. As we've tried to do a lot of employee wellness thing, we've done lunches, we've done t-shirts, we've done ice cream, you know, days, and just simple things that people, it really doesn't cost a lot of money, to be honest. It was funny with the lunches when we started doing them. We started doing them like every 3 weeks. We would go to local restaurants who we knew weren't very busy, and all but I think one of them was able to, like, they certainly would be willing to make 100 pizzas, or they were certainly, you know, willing to make 100 box lunches. And we had a very easy, efficient way to hand them out for both shifts. So people really appreciated that. And we're going to just continue to do that. We'll probably do it one more time before the holiday comes up. But, you know, for a small amount of money, it's a lot of goodwill. So I agree with Jeannie. I think that those polls aren't lying. We're in for certainly into 2021 to some extent that this will have the same effect we're having today. And just got to do what we can.
And Jeff, thank you. One of the things I love about your last employee relations piece is that you also went out and you helped the community, that those small restaurants, they too need business. And in doing so, it was a win-win on both sides. And I think that's where our employees seeing us also engaging in the community is reassuring to them, and seeing that investment in just not only our business, but in what's going on around us. I want to recap. You've had some great examples here. Obviously, personal protective equipment and cleaning, schedule flexibility, moving people apart in the facility, these really feel-good moments like the t-shirts and the lunches and stuff. And I think you've shown, I mean, obviously touching on all three of the P's, that that a program like that can help you. Can I ask, how would you, besides perhaps seeing some COVID depression, which I think is a great term, how would you see your employees in terms of, you know, if you had to kind of put a characterization of my workforce, how would you describe them?
So we have a lot of skilled tradespeople, people that I would say live a, you know, a comfortable life. But one of the things that we wanted to make sure is that our workplace was comfortable and safe and clean. So, you know, you've heard a lot of stuff, and like on the retail side of things, you know, people who worked in the retail market or in that industry, they weren't very well protected. So they were really pushing back about going to work.
Right.
We didn't want that at all. So we were like, hey, we'll do whatever you want. You know, you want to wear a full face respirator, no problem. So I think that to kind of laying out that doing proactive things, you know, that helped people a lot. We did have a pretty good, we had one person that came in and tested, which, you know, threw us through a ringer for a couple of weeks, which has been pretty tough, but we've been very, very good with people and just trying to keep their spirits up. So I guess from a workplace, you know, providing a good, safe, clean work environment that's flexible, that we don't want people to look at coming here to work as, oh man, I have to go back. I've got so much stuff on my plate. You know, nothing in their lives is normal. So I guess we're trying to make it as easy as possible. And then, like I said, supporting them outside. One of the things, and this is an easy thing to do, but if anyone has kids, and we have one school district in particular that sent out all these packets. So we said, hey, email them to us, we'll print them for you. And we printed, I don't know, like for the city of Chesapeake, man, I don't know, we printed 3,000 pages of packets for kids, which was easy because if their kids are happy, they're going to be happy. You know, if their kids are engaged, they're so simple things like that where people, unfortunately don't have the capacity or capability to print that kind of stuff at home anymore with the technology the way it is. So I would just find out where your people's issues are and see if there's anything you can do to ease their pain.
Yeah. Jeff, thank you. Those are some great ideas. And stay with us because we're going to be coming back with some more questions. Let's go now to Bert. Bert, are you here?
I am. Can you hear me okay?
Hi, Bert. Yes. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Tell us a little bit about Blue Ridge Fiberboard and then what you have done to address the COVID in the wake of this pandemic.
Okay. My name is Bert Eads. I'm the plant manager. Blue Ridge Fiberboard is a plant in Danville. We have about 135 employees. We make fiberboard for the building products industry. When we went into before the pandemic, we were a 24/7 production operation. And we did experience a little bit of a drop in sales, so we cut back to a 24/5 operation, but we do have people here around the clock now working. And so we've taken, as many actions as we think are reasonable to protect the workforce. So early on, we jumped in with enhanced cleaning, with PPE available, a lot of training and communications. And maybe that's what I'd emphasize is I think we've really tried to emphasize as much as possible that training and communication for people throughout, the continuous reminders of the behaviors that are necessary to minimize the risk of exposure. And we try to emphasize also, not just while you're here at work, but all the time. So, we recognize people are out in the communities and they're doing a lot of things. We want to try to minimize the spread. So we include that in the training that we do to be protective all times, not just while you're here. Over time, we've had to, we've ramped up. So as the virus has spread, the risk has become probably more severe. We've added additional cleaning. We clean parts, machinery. We have people who are constantly cleaning break rooms and common areas like our locker rooms, things like that. And then we've enhanced the screenings we do. We question everybody as they come into work. We do temperature checks. We provide PPE. We haven't gone to full required mask wearing all the time, but it is required anytime you're within 6 feet working with somebody else. So we have implemented that requirement to try to minimize the spread.
Bert, can I ask, when you're on this 3 shift, the 24/5, are you keeping them 3 8-hour shifts, or is there any flexibility to ease that transition when people are coming on and off shifts?
We do. With the continuous process, we really need operators here at all times to run our business. So from a production standpoint, it's been 3 fixed shifts of 8-hour shifts spread through the day. Now, other people, we have flexibility. So with different people, maintenance or the support group, we can be flexible if we need to. And then where we can, we've done some work from home. Now, in manufacturing, of course, that's very difficult. There are not many jobs that we have that really support work from home, but there have been several cases where we've had people do that, so they aren't here and exposed to a large number of people.
Great, thank you. How would you describe your employee climate right now?
It's interesting. You asked Jeff that, and I was thinking about it for us. It's really mixed. We have some people who you can tell take this very seriously. They wear masks most of the time and, are taking the right behaviors. But in honesty, I think one of my biggest concerns is a level of complacency. On the one hand, it's great. We've been fortunate that we haven't had a lot of exposure here. We've had really 1 employee with a positive test from exposure outside of the plant, and otherwise no outbreaks or other positive cases. So I am concerned that there's a level of complacency that we have to continue to enforce the PPE requirements, mask wearing, cleaning, things like that. And it's almost as if it's not enforced and we're not really staying on people to make sure that they do it, that they don't. That's right now really my biggest concern in the factory.
Thank you. All right, we're going to move now to Bethany Rose with Buchanan Pump Service and Supply. Thank you, Bert. Bethany, can you tell us a little bit about the company and then share with us what have been your successes in combating COVID-19?
Sure. Good morning. My name is Bethany Rose, and I am the co-vice president of Buchanan Pump Service. We are a family business. My father started in '74, and currently my husband and I operate the company, and he comes in when he wants to. He's 75, so he comes in when he wants to and he leaves when he wants to. And he wreaks havoc when he wants to, and then we fix it. So we have a little bit of a different scenario. We have 4 locations in 4 states. We have about 70 plus employees. So one of our biggest things right off the top was all states had different regulations going into all of this. So my husband and I were having to set up regulations. For instance, in Illinois, they were more aggressive with their regulations. And so what was going on in Illinois was not affecting what was going on in our Tennessee location, or what was going on in our corporate office in Virginia was not affecting what was going on in our West Virginia operations. So we decided just to set a standard that whatever the highest standard that was being set, which usually came from Illinois, we tried to implement in all of our other states just as a safety precaution. So a couple of things, probably the biggest thing out of all of this is that I see the glass half full, and I don't allow any of my leadership around me to see it any other way. So it's okay. We have challenges, but if we have a challenge, I need a solution to that. So, and with that, once I put that in place, we've seen 20% growth for the last 4 years. So I have developed and tried to really cultivate a level of mutual respect from the top to the bottom, from my husband and I, who you can come and sit down and have a chat with us at any time, to my guys that might start out as a delivery driver. So with that, we've had very frank meetings, transparent meetings, and said, okay, some of you in this room, or we did it outside in our warehouse where we could all social distance. Some of you, we know you're really concerned and you're scared. Other of you don't see it the same, but we will have a culture of mutual respect within each branch and make sure that you're treating your coworker on that level that they choose to be treated. So, and I won't tolerate anything less than that. So we set up, if you, we have all of the PPE available for our teams. If you're gonna have to work up close, then you are required to wear a mask, gloves, all of those things are available. We really ramped up our cleaning. Fortunately, with what we do, we sell water pumps to the mining, industrial, municipal markets, commercial markets. We're able to, we don't work right on top of each other, so that really has helped us as far as being able to social distance. One of the successes, and we also, over half of our workforce has been with us 10 years, a quarter of our workforce has been with us for 20 years. So that really does help us as far as having those that have been with us for a long time. But a couple of the successes we've had is the creativity of our teams. I like to have a lot of input from my guys. So I sat them down and said, okay, guys, give us your input. Where are you at in all of this? Tell us what you need from us to come to work and feel safe. And really got some good feedback. We also moved from 5-day week to a 4-day week, but they still get 40 hours. And that actually helped. We originally started it as a way to have 3 days that we could clean on, definitely, do some deep cleaning on the 5th day, things like that. But it actually really boosted morale to have those 3-day weekends, and they still kept all of their benefits. We did not have to lay anybody off because the overtime obviously dropped, but they didn't have more wear and tear on their vehicles. They had less food to buy, things like that. And so we thought we would have some kickback on that, but actually it boosted the morale of our company. And actually we found out that we are one of the few pump testing facilities, and we found out that we saved $1,000 a month just in electricity, only testing pumps 4 days a week. So that's been another success, is being able to save some money, and our guys feel still like they're getting some downtime and they're able to take care of things at home and process everything. And then another success has probably been just our communication skills. Everybody just really working together. If someone doesn't feel well, then don't come into work. We'll work with you. You know, call me from home or call your branch manager. We'll deal with whatever comes up. We were really involved with single parents, especially those that when schools, daycares were being shut down, things like that. Really worked hard to make sure that they had the support that they needed.
Wow, Bethany, thank you. Those are some great ideas. I really liked your point about I sat the guys down and I invited their feedback and input. I want to go on to ask you, or well, actually, before we move back to the next question, how would you describe your employee relations climate, Bethany?
You know, we are very, very fortunate. We have a great relationship with our team. My husband and I could probably name off, even with all of our employees, almost every spouse of our employees by name. And so they trust us, which I think is really important. And so when there is an issue, they come to us and they talk to us. We had a gentleman that he thought he might have the virus. And of course we said, hey, he just started feeling bad during the day. We said, hey, take off. Some of his coworkers were concerned, and I said, you know what, go get testing and send us the bill. So we've really tried to build a relationship with our team to where they can have a voice with us, but we're not going to be taken advantage of either. But our climate is a little bit different. I don't have as much of the concern. Now, we do have 1 or 2 employees in Illinois that they're not sure if the world is going to come back. And I just consistently tell them, you know what, Buchanan Pump Service is navigating through it along with the rest of the world. You know, whatever you need from us to support you in that, we're here, and we're going to work with you. So that's sort of where the approach we've had, and our climate surprisingly is really good.
The next question I'd like to, thank you, Bethany. The next question I'd like to open up to all 3 of the panelists. And this has come from some questions that I've recently received around the areas of flexibility and policy. One of the things, a manufacturer who is outside of Virginia recently approached me because they had been pretty heavy-handed in enforcing the policies around COVID, including the attendance policy. And I would like, let me finish that. So the challenge they faced is that they've had some people who they let go because they elected not to come to work. And this has had its, the wave of this decision has been felt through their employee populations. Can you each speak to how you're handling enforcement in terms of pairing it with the flexibility that each of you have identified as important to the successes you've had? So Jeff, can we go back to you and start there?
Yeah, so I mean, I think that everyone in a workplace has to determine their own individual risk. We had some people who maybe I would say were overreaching a little bit on their risk, and through that education, and we have a good health insurance program through Optima, which is Centera, which some of you guys might be familiar with. They had a lot of resources, so we provided that. We also have the local Department of Health people. We have a contact there. So sometimes we didn't tell people that they were not correct, but we said, hey, once you have somebody outside look at your risks and make sure that you're managing them correctly. Because although we have, we're very flexible with the schedule, but there's also a balance of, how much we're paying people. So we certainly had people that were willing to work at home. We provided hardware that they needed to. We had people taking assembly jobs home, and we certainly worked with them. But we did kind of have a line there that said, hey, because you're scared to come to work doesn't mean that you can't come to work. And we make accommodations as far as isolation. So, we have certain people who we kind of have off on their own, and people aren't really around them. And then the schedule. So if someone's like, well, I was a first shift employee, I don't feel comfortable with all these people. We said, okay, well then come to second shift. There's far fewer people. So I think it's kind of a balance, and we manage it on an individual basis, but I can tell you we haven't terminated anyone for attendance. We've had people that over the course of since COVID have left the company, and we had one person that kind of self-terminated themselves by filing for unemployment, which they were able to get, but we didn't terminate them. They chose to do that on their own, and they went on that road independently. The only thing I told them is I said, I would definitely get legal advice on what you're doing, because it's not lining up for the rules with pre-COVID. Okay. So there's issues there. And with Bethany, I can tell you, I'm involved in a business in Illinois, in the Iowa area. Illinois is really strict. So if you use those standards, that is, they're high. And Illinois got, down the road, I think they have major issues how they've managed it. So the folks in Virginia have done a better job and provided businesses like us a lot more resources than you'll ever see in Illinois. So hopefully you can share your Virginia resources with your Illinois people.
Well, I will say we haven't adopted every single policy. We just try to put the ones that we felt like were reasonable as a standard across the board. So, and we can get in that. One of them, the mask, and some of the scenarios where our guys have to work. I just settled a workers' comp claim for $500,000. If my guys say they're afraid they're going to pass out in something, or they're afraid that they could get hurt, then we're going to step back. I call our company lawyer and we move forward. So not every single thing, but a good bit of that we did try to work with.
Yeah. The other comment I have for the person outside that asked, if they took PPP money, and depending on their timing and all that kind of stuff, terminating people for attendance while you're taking that money is probably a high legal risk, but that's a completely different discussion.
Thank you for bringing that up, Jeff. That's a good point to be considered. Bert, so tell us, in the context of enforcement and flexibility, Jeff gave us some great examples about using education, resources, health insurance. How are you handling that sensitive balance between, the line that can't be crossed and the flexibility needed to continue to operate productively?
It is difficult, and of course we want to work with people. We want to recognize how unique the situation is. But with a little bit larger plant and more people, it's also important to be very consistent with what we do and set policies in place. So essentially, we expanded our policies. The company already provided sick pay for employees. So we expanded that coverage to up to 10 days of sick for COVID-19 related issues. And so as people come forward and they have concerns, if they've had exposure, they have a spouse or someone they live with who's tested positive or is having symptoms, we work with them and we let them go out of work. Like I said, we pay them for up to the 10 days while they're out getting tested or have issues. We'll cover, we expand that sick pay to essentially be similar to FMLA, meaning if they need to go out and care for children or care for family members, then they can go out for up to that 10-day period and still get paid. And then beyond that time, we'll work with them, but they'll need to use something like vacation or other pay to be out longer than that. And then we'll apply the attendance policy beyond that.
Thank you. Bethany, would you like to offer any suggestions or thoughts on that balance?
Yeah, one of the things is we did have we had a particular employee that was concerned about coming into work. And so I narrowed it down to their workspace and I said, okay, from an employee's perspective, you're concerned. What can we do in your workspace to make it different? What can we do to make it safer? And when I started breaking down their environment and things like that, they decided that they did want to come to work. So I really try to put the tools back in their hand as to what I could do differently. Now that doesn't work with everybody, and this is someone that worked on our production floor. But then they decided that, maybe it wasn't such an unsafe environment. Also, we have a company lawyer on retainer that anybody that had questions or concerns, we gave them those tools also that they could talk with them and see what their rights were as an employer. What that lawyer's perspective, we also, the local health departments, I had numbers for every branch, the local health department. And so gave them those tools also, that if there were concerns about their space or how to make it better. So I just try to arm them with as much information as I can. Also, by the time everything really started hitting, majority of my employees had already lined out vacation days and when they wanted to use them. So, in the beginning, they were saying, we're just going to be shut down 14 days, different parts. We allowed employees that if they wanted to use their vacation any differently, that they did not have to give us a notice, that if they had concerns that they could use, and they could use their personal time, they could use their doctor time, or they could use their vacation time, however they saw fit, because that was an employee benefit.
Okay, thank you. So I know we're kind of rounding third on our time together here, and I want to recap because I have heard so many wonderful suggestions and insights. Huge, huge, huge commitment to just, I want to say, loving our employees, meeting them where they're at, providing them with resources, identifying what they need, going to places where we have those resources. Jeff had mentioned your health insurance company. Bethany, you've mentioned your legal counsel. Bert, you've spoken very concisely about how you do that on a larger scale when you had to expand policy. Going back to our 3 Ps, I think we've seen how each of our panelists have used those 3 areas and really been effective in addressing this. I noticed even, Bethany, you mentioned some impact on the bottom line to your company, and you've demonstrated that sound management and commitment to the employees, this isn't easy. Nobody ever said it was going to be easy, but we really have seen 3 companies here that have just displayed how strong management and a compassionate approach to engaging with the situation and the employees has really put these companies in a strong position to combat this pandemic. What I'd like to do right now before we open up is give each of our panelists just one last opportunity. Is there any last little nugget of wisdom that you would like to leave with our audience today in terms of this pandemic? Jeff, we'll go back to you for that last nugget.
I think probably the biggest thing, and every business is different, is to reassure that all the employees, have jobs, are going to continue to have jobs, and that's a big fear in a lot of industries. Where people are like, well, it's maybe a seasonal business, which most of those people have taken the brunt already. In our local area, there's a bunch of that seasonal stuff. So making sure that they have that they don't have other fears that are going to come up later in the year, at the end of the year. Everyone just thinks differently. So anytime that kind of stuff comes up, adding stability and reassurance to them is going to be really helpful.
Great, thank you. Bert, any last thoughts?
Well, I thought Bethany's comments earlier were interesting, that on the one hand, we want to stay very positive and very glass half full, that, we are a successful business and we have a very good future. But I think it's also important with the workforce to acknowledge that this is not going to be a short-term thing. And your survey was interesting of how people view the duration of this. We view this as a long-term thing, that we're regardless of what may happen with the virus, we have flu season coming up, and in general, I think we have to acknowledge the risk of disease like this impacting the workforce. And so we're taking action that we view as long-term. In general, what can we do to minimize contact surfaces? Can we add pulls on doors so you don't have to grab a handle? Can we add automated faucets and toilets so people don't have to touch things in the bathrooms as much as possible? Cleaning stations, even things like we're doing today, moving away from travel and face-to-face business to more video conferences and working from home. So for us, I think a lot of it is preparing for this to be a long-term thing, and how do we confront the reality of that and make adjustments.
Yeah, absolutely. And Bert, thank you for that long-term perspective, because when we see that Gallup poll come out and 51% is saying this is not going away tomorrow, that vision to the long term, I think, does create a lot of the confidence and that feeling of like, okay, we're on top of this, that our employees need and that Jeff referenced. Bethany, any last thoughts from you?
Yeah, I loved what he said about employees having jobs. That was one of the first things that we got with our employees and told them they all had jobs, that would be the last thing that they had to worry with. And so I guess probably my last thing is just give your team the opportunity to surprise you. My husband and I had planned for $1.5 million growth this year because of the trend we had been on. So we had employees, we had new infrastructure set up, which also included a new $750,000 facility. So we had a lot on our plate geared up for 2020. But what I found out as I sat down and we met with our employees and we told them just sort of where we were. We had employees actually volunteer to work less time so that people weren't laid off. And we allowed them to be part of the process. And so when I'm talking about, I see the glass half full, I'm definitely the girl that likes to take on a challenge. And so with my leadership team, that's what I said, okay, guys, we have to get everybody on the same page and we all have to work together. And I didn't ask for those employees to take less time off. They just started coming out of the woodwork and saying, hey, I know that we're gonna have a really rough year. I'm building a house right now, so maybe I only, can you just work me like 30 some hours a week? I had another guy that still lived with his parents. He said, if I can do 25 hours a week, I can get by. And so I think the biggest thing, I'm very much put my hand to the plow. And so I'm always the one that's, thinking I need to do a lot of work. But what I found is that my husband and I didn't have to shoulder all of this by ourselves. We have a really great team of leaderships and employees that when we sort of shared with them where we were, they rose to the occasion, and I'm very honored and humbled to get to lead the teams of people that we have within our business. So give people the opportunity to surprise you. Sometimes they will.
Thank you, Bethany. I'm going to ask Jeannie. Jeannie, do you have any questions or anything you'd like to offer to our panelists?
No, but one thing that I picked up on very early on was a key element that I have said all along, that as we walk through this and as we negotiate this ever-changing world, communication, communication, communication. If your employees know what's going on, even if we don't know what's going on, if they think we know what's going on, if we give that to them and we're open to their concerns and we address their concerns on a regular basis, it makes a world of difference.
It does, definitely. Before I'm going to go over to Mindy and have her start with any questions we've received, I want to just thank all of our panelists, Jeff, Bert, Bethany. You have really brought some boots on the ground tactics that have proven successful in your organizations, and I really want to thank you for that. I started out when all of this began 5-6 months ago. I kind of got on my little soapbox that I thought this was a great time that we can be innovative. And I think a couple people wanted to take a swing at me just for suggesting that. In any case, I have listened to you, and each one of you have displayed that with innovation, you can overcome these obstacles and these challenges and continue to succeed. And so thank you for being an example of employers that have chosen to innovate, that have chosen to educate, that have chosen to show flexibility, and just look at each situation and say, where's the possibility in this, and how can we capitalize on that possibility to keep our organization moving forward and our employees safe and healthy, and to the extent that they can be happy during these times, doing that. So thank you, and I applaud you as employers for these approaches, these tactics, these strategies, these brilliant ideas that you've shared with us today. Mindy, I think you're still with us. Did we get any questions?
No, we have not had any questions come in, but if anyone has any that they would like to ask, now would be a great time. You can just use the group chat.
So we'll just, while we're waiting to see if any more questions come, what I am going to do is tell you that we are fortunate to have one more conversation left in this pandemic workforce series. That will be September 24th from 11 a.m. until 12 p.m. We will be doing a similar format of some brief updates, inviting some other great sharing to happen, and wrapping that conversation up as we move into to the fall. And then you can look for Gen Edge to bring some wonderful programs and resources to you in the months ahead as well. Mindy, did anybody drop us a question?
No, we haven't had any come in.
Okay, so as we're down here to the last minute, if you have any questions or following this, everyone who's registered on the webinar today, we will be sending you that document that contains the phase 3 requirements for Virginia. And if you have questions, please reach out to Sam. He was with us in the beginning. I think, Sam, are you still with us?
I am.
He's still here. So Sam, in the event that people have questions, you can reach out to Sam, and please stay connected with Gen Edge. They've got a series of programs this fall that are exciting and targeted exclusively at helping manufacturers in Virginia during this, this challenging time, which just we will look back on in 20 years and say, wow, that wasn't so challenging after all. So Mindy, I'm going to come back to you one last time to see if anybody has any questions.
No questions, but Donald Purdy did say, well done, a lot of good information.
Great, and thank you. Thank you again to our panelists, to Jeff, to Bert, to Bethany for that excellent input. To Jeannie, it was great to be back with you one more time. To Sam and
with you, Denise.
Thank you, ma'am. To Sam and Gen Edge and everyone, it's so awesome to be able to come together and show that innovation and collaboration can make a difference when fighting a pandemic work environment. Thank you all, and we will see you back again on September 24th, same time, same web channel. Thanks so much. Take care now.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.